Hi, welcome to MileHighDiscussions. My name is Zeyta DeHerrera. I am a sophomore at East High School, and I love to volunteer.
Hi, I'm Izzy Gorsuch. I will be your host today. And today we're going to be talking about kind of the equity or inequity within the education system. And these are our guests for today, if you guys want to introduce yourselves.
Go first.
All right, hi, I'm MJ Sykes, a senior at East High School.
Hi, I'm Taughfeek McDonald, a junior at East High School.
Today's episode is inspired by our author, Dr. Joy Lawson Davis, and her book, Bright, Talented, and Black, which we read and are reading within the GT and East High School. So, have you guys heard of this book or have read it at all?
I've heard of it, but not read it.
Yeah?
Also, I've heard of it.
Okay. It's a really interesting book. It focuses on the not having a lot of representation within the GT community and kind of the need for that.
It also talks about kind of also like underrepresentation in AP classes and honors classes, and addresses some of the like micro and macroaggressions that people of color are often faced with. So I guess where we could start off today is with you guys. Where have you experienced either micro or macroaggressions in like evolving discrimination or minor involvements of discrimination?
Personally, I haven't really experienced many what we describe as micro and macroaggressions since really elementary school, primarily because I haven't been involved with the Denver public school system for quite a while.
Yeah.
But when I did come across it, it was more so not really about scores. I think it was more so about work level, and that you would be underestimated in what you were capable of doing, and what the potential that people had seen in you. And so, even at a young age, I had to reflect to be able to realize that that was a form of discrimination in some sort of way, even though it was very subtle within my classrooms and my education as a elementary schooler.
Right. Did you feel like your teachers contributed to that kind of, I guess, like, expectation of you, like your ethnicity, automatically your teachers see you and you're like, oh yeah, because that student is African American, like he's probably not going to do as well in the class, so I should focus more on him, or I should focus more on like giving him more of the attention. Like, do you feel like your teachers often contribute to that culture? Yes,
in part I do feel like they were a little bit of a contributing factor, but they, just like I said previously, it was really just about the amount of work and my capacity, my personal capacity. I didn't actually experience too much myself, but as for my brother, I understand that he experienced much more, to the point where GT got involved and we actually had him switch schools that he had to test into, because he was just doing so poorly and being treated differently by the teachers.
Right. Yeah. What about you, MJ? Do you have a similar experience?
Well, I feel like often when I go into classes with teachers, even if it's African American teachers, they'll hold you to a different standard than they'll hold everyone else to. Because I've had African American teachers who go, oh, well, you're black, so I know you can do so much more, and I know you're as good or better than these kids. And so they hold you to that standard, they grade you harsher. Then I've had other not black teachers who will say, oh, well, you're not going to do this work, or you're going to slack off, aren't you? Or you're going to somehow mess up this class or for yourself. And it's made me personally want to not attend the class, or not be in that environment where I seem like I am disliked, or not wanted at least.
Do you feel like that's contributed to like the AP and honors divide in classes? Like as far as like diversity levels, like it's proven, like there's studies have shown that there are significantly less diverse classes in AP and honors?
I've known all throughout high school, and I've gone all 4 years at East High School. In most of my honors or AP classes, I will look around and I will be the only black child. Like, I know I think it was maybe sophomore year English too, every time we will like read a book and they'll say, oh, the N-word, or they'll say, oh, something happened to black people, or every time anyone of color is mentioned, you can just feel all eyes on me because there's no one else of color in the room, or maybe there is, but there's 2 or 3 more black students, and they also feel uncomfortable, and then we're all sitting at the same table because we feel uncomfortable together, and next thing you know, we're another statistic. So
Right.
it's just a difficult situation.
I mean, for me, I know that my counselor recommended me to go into Hispanic Lit. And like, that wasn't much of a blow, but it's just one of those things where it's like, she didn't recommend me to go into AP Lang. She didn't recommend me to go into AP Lit. She kind of looked at me and saw one thing. I think it kind of tells a lot. And I think that's one of the things like with implicit bias, where you don't really mean to do it. It was accidental. It wasn't like a directed racial thing, but it's something that affected me nonetheless.
Right, right. Like I have this one teacher, my English 2 teacher right now, he was telling me a story about how he has or had an African American student in his AP Lang class. And he was telling me the story about how she was an amazing student and she loved all of the content. But once they got into a book where they were feeling more of that racial tension, she felt like she couldn't, or she connected too much to the book to where everybody was making her feel more pressured to talk about that book in a more in-depth way, and those expectations, like you were talking about earlier, were set so much higher, as well as that kind of pressure that was put on her. She just couldn't take it, so she had to drop this AP class that she really loved. So people are taking, or just teachers in general are taking this to a whole new level, not in like an intentional way, but the diversity between AP and honors and just regular classes isn't not just because African American students feel like they can't take it, but it's because they feel pressured from social expectations that they can't take it.
On those social expectations, it feels like when you take your AP classes and your peers, or your fellow African American peers, feel you gaining more education, and becoming more successful, it just seems like that they'll distance themselves away from you,
Right.
And then
Absolutely.
you've got this sort of divide where you're too black for the white kids and too white for the black kids, and
yeah.
it's just that it's like segregation or self-segregation. So
Absolutely, yeah.
we have to find a place where education in black people isn't white or isn't acting, whitewashed or improper for a black person. We've got to get to a point where we can have educated black people who have manners and who can be polite and just not want to be unknowing.
Right, right. How, like, yes, those are obviously like great points. Like we need to have more implications to make students feel more comfortable. What are your guys' ideas of how to make that possible? Like what kind of balance, plan, and implementation are we trying to put in now, and what do you guys think we could be doing more in schools? Because I know you guys both go to different schools right now. What do you think that your individual environments could be doing about that problem?
Personally, speaking on the topic of that cultural and ethnic division within the classroom, I would say that one of our only options is really just influence in general.
Yeah.
Because we understand that, as you guys were saying, implicit bias, too white for the white kids, too black,
Yeah.
sorry, got that backwards. But and then once we do get into those classes as ethnic members, we are then shunned upon from other groups, and all of a sudden our culture flipped on ourselves,
Right.
Exactly.
and now we're the outliers.
Exactly.
And it's because, we took influence and we wanted to be there, and whatever influence we're following is obviously something that they're not following.
Right.
And so personally, all I think we can do is influence and try to push in the right direction. Besides that, I don't think there are any like set in stone ways that we can try to diversify our classrooms more so than they already are, because the students are there. We just gotta figure out how we want them to organize themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I know Equity Club at East specifically is working a lot towards getting that like spoken about and getting that out there, not just in junior year when you can't really do anything about it, but when they're in middle school and when they're freshmen, so they can actually like sound this plan. Because I mean, I'm sure you both know, like when you start in high school, it kind of sets you up for your past. So if you start in those honors and AP classes, it sets you up to go into that throughout your high school experience.
Like if you gain that confidence in your younger years, then you're more likely to take those harder classes in high school when it really, really matters.
I agree. I feel that the schools they're trying to portray that they're doing a lot, you know? But it doesn't always seem like they're actually doing a lot.
Right.
It sometimes seems like they're all talk, honestly. And I know they do make new clubs like the Equity Club, and they've got all forums, and you can eat with the principal at lunch and do all these things and give all these suggestions, but it doesn't seem like we're being listened to often, you know? And when we are listened to, it's not the whole suggestion they take. They take bits and pieces of each one and try and make the best solution that pleases everyone. And usually that doesn't work out.
Like the administration is censoring you guys in a way, like only picking what they feel like they can really do and not addressing the harder stuff.
And if we are to solve this problem a little, we do need some of the solutions that they've given us, like the laptop carts. That's a great solution, but it doesn't always help, because I know in my experiences, in my AP classes, I've been in classes like AP World and AP US where they'll say, hey, whip out your laptop right now, and I'll look up like, oh, maybe I don't have a laptop, or oh, well, maybe I don't have enough money for this book, or oh, the AP test is $90, and I know that you can receive assistance for that, but sometimes the assistance doesn't apply to everyone. Because I know my mom's a teacher, my dad works for the government, and I have a family of 6, and well, now it's 8 because my sister's just had kids, but we're supporting all these people, and the school will say, oh, your income's too high, even though it's divided between 8 people, and now it's not enough, but they won't give us the assistance we need. So it feels like discrimination in between our financial gaps now, because they don't look at the full situation that you have. They just see, oh, you make this much, we can't help you, or oh, you make this much, yeah, you're not applicable to receive a book.
It's almost like they don't look at the whole person, the whole situation.
They see a race and an income, and that's it.
And I think kind of the same thing goes for college. Like the same thing, like continuing on into the higher education. Well, thank you guys so much. We will be taking our first break. So we will see you guys after the break.
Learn what you love what you learn. Graduate debt-free from a certified program in health science, design, trades, or administration in less than a year. Opportunity comes from possibility. Come see what's possible.
Welcome back to Mile High Discussions. We had some amazing conversations in the first half, but we're going to jump right back into it. So you mentioned something earlier as far as like that expectation of being in between those two cultures. Like you're too black to be in the white culture and you're too white to be in the black culture. Right. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Just being identified as ethnic, you automatically have a certain culture you're affiliated with straight out of birth. And that culture, peer, friend, family group, that entire combination is definitely what will help influence or hurt in that influence when you're going into the educational system and how you want to manage and pose yourself. And for me personally, I remember as a young boy, I went into Columbine Elementary School, and then I transferred over to Cherry Creek Elementary School. Very drastic change. One in very, very far west side Park Hill, one in the new Stapleton neighborhood when it was just becoming what it is today. And after transitioning to that school, I started to be more of the higher achieving student because I had potential, but my parents didn't see me flourishing at Columbine. So when I transferred, it gave me an opportunity to be with a higher peer group. And that definitely took me a step away from my associated culture. And I would say that from there, just indirectly, I've just been getting farther and farther just because I take a lot of time out for education. As a matter of fact, I've given up sports. I've given up basketball, which was one of my favorite sports for most of my life. I gave it up to further my education. Right. And that I can just see is creating a division between me and what some people might say should be your friends, right, or should be the people you're hanging out
right,
with.
Right.
And a lot of media and culture goes into how other people look at me and how I'm looking at other people. And all of a sudden, that diversity just goes away. And as we were talking about self-segregation earlier, just to bring that back up really quick, that's also a lot of how I can picture myself. I'm not as diversified in my friend group, just because I would say that I've learned to self-segregate myself indirectly through just working alone, trying to further myself, and finally being where I'm at today and seeing the culmination of every single one of my actions.
How much do you guys think like media, like movies, music, TV shows, have the impact of like that expectation or like that image of what an ethnic person should be?
Oh, it makes all the difference.
Yeah.
Because every time you watch TV, you see what people at your school would call the whitewashed black person, or you see young Day-Day on the street who has a gun in his backpack,
Yeah,
and who sells weed
hoodie.
out of his locker.
Right,
Exactly.
yeah.
And I feel like those media portrayals of black people have become the standard now. And so every time people look at you, they go, oh, well, is that MJ from my AP class, or is that, MJ who's a rapper and who's got this gold because he sells drugs or whatever? And they don't see you for who you are,
Right.
So they don't look at you as, oh, this boy has a good scholarship. He's got all these classes. He's got all these A's. They see him as, oh, he's black and he's with 2 other black people, so I might have to walk on the other side of the street, and
Right.
I might have to just protect myself from him because his skin is darker than mine. And it's hard to overcome those expectations because the media set it in our brains that, oh, if we see these people, we have to feel this way, and if we see these people, we have to feel that way. And we have to make sure that we can protect ourselves, and oh, my people are getting killed, and oh, my people are being discriminated against, and we just have to find a way to where we can not judge people off of their colors and not have that shadeism, but where we can talk to people and say, hey, I like your personality, or hey, you've always been nice to me, hey, you're a good friend, and we have intelligent talks.
Absolutely.
Right, like the media reinforces that. Like the
Right.
Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, for example, is a great example of like the whitewashed black person in the fancy home, and then
Exactly.
Will comes in and he completely flips their world
the hood.
upside down. Like that expectation that's obviously set in that show stigmatizes those two opposite ends of the spectrum of what it's
Exactly.
like to be in that racial culture.
Absolutely.
You never see a black kid who just goes to school and does what he has to do. It's always, oh, the black kid that's the rap artist or the drug dealer, or the black kid that's only got white friends and only likes white people and hates his own people.
It's boxes. It's like one or the
Exactly.
other. It's black or it's white, and it's never like that nice mix.
And if you're in the middle, you don't count as either, That's
Exactly.
where I talked about earlier, when you're not accepted by either groups. And it seems like that's a common problem in our society today, yet we still press it among other people, if you get what I'm saying.
No, exactly.
Have either of you guys seen that movie, The Hate You Give?
The Hate
It was
You Give.
just released. Have you?
I actually have not. And
I
I
haven't.
want
I've heard
to.
of it a lot.
Yeah, it kind of touched on that idea of like, it was about this girl who was like, had 2 different sides. She lived in a very black community, but she went to a very like white school. So she had that like conflicting side, and I think it was like really well addressed.
I think it was very well addressed. I mean, once you looked at the movie and you looked at those scenes, you saw that she had to censor herself in both of the environments that she was in. One, she was in that school, and the beautiful scene, I saw this one scene from the movie that was just amazing, where she grabbed the hairbrush that a girl was commenting on the situation, and she grabbed the hairbrush from the white girl's bag, and she's like, does this look like a weapon to you? And she's like, and the girl was terrified because the black girl was going up and she's like almost beating her, but to a point where it's just gonna scare her enough. just to show her what it's like to be black every day. And she had that, the moment that she was in that car and she watched that incident happen, her worlds got mended together. So she couldn't stand on both ends of those spectrums. Like, she had to stand right in the middle.
You talked about censoring yourself, and I feel like you have to have a different persona for different activities, and persona is Greek for mask, so you have to have those different masks you can put on everywhere you go, because that's what some of the best well-rounded people do. They know how to interact with more people and become more well-rounded so that they can have those connections and that network of people that will support them, no matter where they're from. So it's not always the thing of, oh, I have to make sure to only act like this around him, but it's that you need to know how to connect with all the different people so that way you can have a background and a village of people behind you to support you.
But do you feel like you have to, like, for example, like a job interview, like you're an African American person, you go into a job interview, do you feel like you have to be more professional than the other white guys applying for the same job? Do you have to express yourself in an even better way to show that you're not the kind of stigmatized black person in those professional environments?
Do you feel the same way?
Absolutely. As we were talking about earlier, the way we were perceived in the classroom alone, it's not just the classroom. As we've mentioned, that the media portrays us in a specific way, and we have specific cultures decided for us.
Yeah.
And absolutely, I would say that is something that we have to do, that we should we go into an interview scenario, we will try to look more professional or more well-rounded than our competitors coming in of different ethnicities, because we feel like we're either undermined or looked down upon or whatnot.
It seems like that's our whole world sometimes. Everywhere you go, people will look at you like, oh, am I going to have to discipline this black kid? Or, oh, another black kid's walking in to cause trouble in my store. Oh, let me follow this black kid around because he doesn't look like he has money. You always have these standards pressed upon you, but whether you choose to acknowledge them or not is, I feel, a personal choice we can make, and the personal choice will decide how your future plays out, unfortunately, and it's just a sad way to live sometimes, where you have to make sure that you are better than the standard always.
Right.
Just to give a quick personal experience on different personas and not being perceived correctly. A personal experience that I've recently had coming back from international travels and studying abroad. I was actually having quite a few troubles with my scheduling and my academics coming back here to East High School. And a lot of those issues derive from, we don't know what kind of student he is. I'm assuming. I never actually got those specific words, but
You kind of knew. In the back of your head, you were like, yeah, I know.
And we had already experienced problems with our school system, as I stated previously about my brother having to transfer schools because of how poorly he was being treated. Coming back, I didn't get placed into the classes I'd like to, and I made a big deal out of it. I didn't enjoy that because I knew it wasn't my level, and they said, oh no, but you have to wait there till we get you out of there. I had to self-advocate. My parents were only willing to go so far because they said, you're mature enough, this is your time. If you want to be this mature, it's time to step up. And when I stepped up to the occasion, I had a meeting with staff and administration, colleagues, and family. We got the word from some of the staff and administration that they had the feeling that there were two schools within one, that there was already a division there within a public school, that there was nothing they could do about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think East High School as a whole loves to talk about how diverse they are and loves to pride themselves, like our diverse classrooms, but when you really look into it, how diverse are those AP classes?
Just throwing it out there, I took AP Economics for one semester, just being that I had no prerequisites, and I was transferring schools. I tried to get into some AP classes, and I was one of two.
Absolutely,
And
I'm
yeah,
sure.
in most of my classes, I'm the diversity we talk about. We had a running joke today at a field trip. all of the people of color in that class. There's 4 of us. We all sat beside each other. We go, oh, there's too much diversity in this one corner of this 30 room, or the 30 people in the room. The 4 of us are the diversity. And it's like that often with most classes.
Yeah, I think it's really sad that we feel and know that there are these really small amounts of diversity in these upper classes, and that people that can't or just aren't able to or don't feel comfortable self-advocating for themselves to get into those classes and to push themselves is like a whole new level of, like, it's really sad. Like, those kids that don't get the support that they need to push themselves and get into a higher education, they don't get the opportunity to get into those classes and to get that education.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think going back to what you said previously, like, there are kids that can't afford computers and can't afford those things, and they might not feel comfortable asking for those resources. So I think it's important to, you know, feel comfortable, but people aren't always comfortable asking for the things that they need. Well, this has been a really awesome topic. There's a lot to talk about this within this entire topic, but I think you guys did a great job. Thank you guys so much for coming and talking with us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Just a quick reminder about social media. Follow our Instagram and YouTube at MileHighDiscussions. Thank you so much.